Hello, friends, and welcome to Good Conversation. I am Phill Nosworthy. Each episode, I sit down with iconic leaders to understand more about what got them to where they are and the wisdom that sustains them along the way. I am excited, incredibly excited, to share today's conversation with you. Ronald Akili is the founder and creative force behind Potato Head in Bali, a place that's been recognized amongst the world's 50 best hotels and honestly is one of my favorite places on planet Earth. He is one of the few people in hospitality who has genuinely changed the game. You see, he hasn't just built a hotel. He has built a creative village, an entirely living system where sustainability and art and music and architecture and community all collide. It has its own rhythm, its own culture, its own intelligence, and it's absolutely changing hospitality for the better. Recently, Ronald was named a Time 100 recipient for his pioneering work in sustainability and was given the Icon Award by Travel and Leisure. He's collaborated with some of the most interesting and powerful people on the planet. Rem Koolhaas and the OMA team, DJ Harvey on the bunker of a nightclub they've called Climax, Futura on major installations. He's also hosted artists like Erykah Badu, Peggy Gou, Jamie XX, Grace Jones. You can tell I'm pretty excited about this one. He is a rare kind of entrepreneur, part systems thinker, part cultural architect, a modern day Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia, and somebody that I personally look to for inspiration in my own work. I think you're gonna love this conversation. Here's Ronald now. My family loves Potato Head. It's a sanctum for us. It's a place where we rest and where we recharge in the middle of the year. If it were up to me, there isn't an executive that I work with that I wouldn't just pick up under the arms and transport them through time and space into Bali and everything that you've built. But I've been so excited to talk to you for such a long time. Here's what people might not know at this point in the conversation. In my words, you're the founder of Potato Head. You're regarded as one of the world's great creative entrepreneurs and visionaries. People talk about you in the same kind of sentences and breath as entrepreneurial greats like Yvon Chouinard at Patagonia. You've done so much, but you've also done it in such a contracted period of years. I wonder if you might open our conversation here by talking about where you caught your entrepreneurial fire from. Like, where did it start from you? Because I don't imagine you wake up and you go, here I am, mid-40s, family man, let's get this thing started. I bet you there's a backstory too. So where did you catch entrepreneurship from?
I would think definitely from my dad. My dad, he is an entrepreneur. Like, he is a true entrepreneur and he's a hero of mine. I mean, I've always remembered since I was young, I have this rebellious soul in me that just like, you know what? I don't think I can ever work for anyone, and I'm not interested in working for anyone. And I'm also not interested in doing work where I don't create things. I've always had this ambition. I didn't know whether it was going to be a hotel or even in the hospitality world, but I've always wanted to create. I have that thirst that I wanted something tangible out of what I do. And I wanted to set my own course. So when I went to, I was doing really poorly in school. I've always been a rebel. I grew up in Jakarta, then I went to school in Hawaii, and that's like not going to school. And it was just surf, beach, and having a good time. But one day I had this class that's just open. It says entrepreneurial studies, and then I met the professor, and he was very interesting. I was like, oh, so what's this entrepreneurial studies? Oh, this is for the ones that if you don't know what you're gonna do, you can take this, and it covers pretty much all of the things that probably will help you realize your dreams. And I ended up excelling so much in that class, in the entrepreneurial class. I ended up joining a JV with the professor after I graduated to create a residential project in Hawaii. And I guess there's always been in me or it's always that rebellious in me that really got me into the entrepreneurial spirit.
For people who don't know, your dad is an icon of business in throughout the world, but especially in Indonesia, and the way that he opened up so many opportunities for people to experience Indonesia, and probably got you traveling quite a lot as well when you were young.
Yeah.
What was your dad's business, and how did that form your view of the world and what was possible?
My dad started from, he's a self-made man. He started this company called Smiling Tour, a travel agency, and it's been now, I think, going into 60 years, if I'm not mistaken. So my brother is running the business now. And my dad retired when he was in his 50s. But so he started from nothing. He started from his first job was actually assisting people at the airport and
Wow.
helping people trying to check in.
Yeah.
And I guess back then, in trying to, at some point, he was just like ushering people how to check in and then start gradually handling VIP clients and then start gradually understanding how the airline works. And then he set up this travel agency. We've always ended up, I've traveled so much when I was young,
Mm.
and hence maybe I've always been inspired by the service industry in a way.
Yeah.
Hotels has always been like a theater to me. Every time I go there, the GM has always been amazing, and it feels just like one big theater. You know how they curate everything,
Yeah.
and also I remember asking my dad. Um, I was like, "Why would you name your company Smiling Tour? That's not the really cool name." His response was like, "Because I want my life to be dedicated to making people smile and making
Mm.
people happy." And that really struck me. And I guess all of these things actually, without me realizing, maybe do inspire me when I start going into the business world and how I ended up being in the hospitality industry, how I ended up looking at things not just as business, but business is just a vehicle for me to do something bigger.
Now, Potato Head's been named one of the top 50 hotels in the world. Congratulations, because it's a
Thank
credit to
you.
your team. I say this anywhere that I go, that your team is the best team that I've ever experienced. And for folks who know me, I've spent my fair share of nights on the road as a traveling professional, maybe 2,000 nights in a hotel if you put them all together. And hands down, with daylight in between, the service, the care, the attention to detail of your team is absolutely second to none. It's the best in the world that I've ever experienced. But Potato Head isn't your first project. So take us back to entrepreneurial studies, that first JV residential program in Hawaii, and then what were some of the steps in between? What were the early origins of Potato Head? What did that come out of?
I I had my after I graduated, I wanted to stay in Hawaii. And then so I was looking at this project. I did a JV with my professor to set up um, to build residential projects. I've
Yeah.
always thought, it would be really amazing if we do one gated community in Hawaii, and I've always been into architecture. I love art and architecture and design. And then, because of family reasons, I couldn't stay in Hawaii. It's not that I couldn't, I chose not to stay in Hawaii. I chose to go back and support my parents in Indonesia. So when I went
Mm,
back to Jakarta, my first gig was I started an art gallery to promote Indonesian contemporary artists. And
mm,
then the second thing I wanted to do was I wanted to promote Indonesian contemporary architecture. So I engaged a good friend of mine now, Andra Martin, who is a really great architect from Indonesia. And he won the Aga Khan Award. And since that first project, I've always done all of my projects with him until now. So I engaged him. I was like, look, I wanted to promote Indonesian art to the world, and I wanted to promote Indonesian architecture to the world,
yeah.
because I think we have something amazing that people have to see. So I started building this residential project with him where we engage 10 Indonesian other architects, contemporary architects. We found a site. We didn't cut a single tree. We built 20 homes with
Mm,
only with local materials. We revitalized an existing lake into our wastewater treatment system. And And this was like, to, when was this? Maybe about 20 years ago now. And at that time, I was dating my girlfriend and my wife now, Sandra, and she was the chef, but she was living in Europe. And
Ah,
so I wanted to find a way to settle down with her in Jakarta. So I thought, it's
yeah.
like, look, why don't we open a restaurant? And it was supposed to be a pure fun project, hence the name Potato Head, you know? And back then in Jakarta, all of the restaurants still need to be in five-star hotels. It needs to be very
Hmm.
fancy, and restaurants have to be named with very luxury or names that are copied up from the States or Europe and brought it back straight to Jakarta. So we wanted to create something that's really different. So I found kind of like a semi warehouse place. We wanted to keep it as industrial as possible. We want to play the music that we like. We will put our friends, Indonesian contemporary artists, to do the walls.
Yes.
And hence the name, we're like, we have to name it something that is, no matter what, people are just going to ask, why do we name it Potato Head? It was a purely fun project, but after a while, we ended up loving the industry in a way. You know,
Yeah.
I've never thought I would say that before, but because none of us came from, I didn't come from the F&B industry or hospitality industry. I've always thought that this could be a fun way for me to express the lifestyle that I would like to have, you know, and the restaurants and all the other things is just a way for people to experience that. So that's how it starts. From there, it was successful. Then we started from there, we started expanding it to Bali and so on.
Restaurants are not to be trifled with. I have a few friends who are restaurateurs, and it is from the outside not an enviable lifestyle. Like you're talking early mornings, hustling
Yeah.
all day, and then it is somehow magically you put yourself together for service time so that you are bright and bubbly and sparkly. What are some of your big memories of being in house, in the kitchen, in elbows deep, getting it all done? Because what I know about restaurants is that like it's an all hands on deck kind of business, isn't it?
At first, my intention was not to get involved at all. That was something Sandra was going to run. And I remember she was in the kitchen until 1 a.m. and she'll be
Hmm.
in the kitchen again by 6, 7 a.m. She's already there again.
Yeah.
We open 7 days a week, so she's there 7 days a week. So it's like you said, it's really tough work. But somehow, when we first opened the restaurant, we were just so successful, you know, and we had people uh, queuing for months. And we broke even our investment within, I would say, 6 months. I remember 6 or 8 months. It was less than a year. But
Unbelievable.
at the same time, it was such a nightmare operationally. Like I had to kind of step in, and I was working. My day job was working building the residential project, right? And so I ended up having to step in, just trying to help. And I have no clue what I'm doing. I back then people were using all this POS ordering system, right? I don't even know how that works. All I've seen is just this tickets of orders flying all over the kitchen just because there's so many orders coming in and it's just people not being served. I remember after the first week of opening, the whole second floor was flooded, the pipe burst. And I mean,
What?
it was one after the other. You know, we learned by going into really deep in it, you know? So we learned everything from scratch. We learned along the way. There's no way for us to pause. It was happening so fast. It was so busy all the time. So we did a lot of mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes, but we learned and we tried to adapt as fast as possible. But it is hard work. It is hard work. I would think restaurants and hospitality overall, you know, I remember my parents back then, when people are on holidays, they work the hardest. When people are not on holiday, they're still working. You know what I mean? And I think that's just like kind of like the hospitality industry is unless you really have the love and the passion for it,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not something that's people can easily take.
So I'm taking notes over here. So build restaurant to turn girlfriend into wife. That's the lesson that I'm getting from this chapter here. But then somehow you kind of like you use that as a leap point as well, because along came the beach club next, and this is probably the thing where I mean success bore out more success for you. What was the leap from the restaurant to the beach club, and how did success follow you there? Because I'm going to come back around to the compression of success. I'm going to keep like digging in on this one because you're kind and humble enough to say, look, somehow it was a wild success. Somehow we had queues for months, but there's definitely something powerful in the midst of what you've always built. There's something about community, there's something about loyalty, there's something about proper produce that you were doing. But that leap from restaurant to beach club, what was that? How did that happen?
It was almost a year. It was about, I think, 11 months or almost a year since we've built the restaurant. And then we found out my wife was pregnant with my first child. And no way she was going to survive in the kitchen, you know?
Mm.
So she decided, you know what? It's best that she's just going to step down at least until when she's fit again, and then maybe she can start going back to the kitchen. So I ended up having to take it over, right? There's no one else. So when I took it over, I I started to like it. I started to kind of like in a way fall in love with the industry,
Mm.
and I've thought, and again, this rebel in me, I still remember since before, I've always wanted to prove people wrong. You know, I've always wanted,
Mm.
I don't like the idea where in order for us to be known, it needs to follow what's already successful in the Western world. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've always wanted, I think there's so many beauty that I see locally, and I wanted to bring that out instead of like just copying from what's outside and
Yeah.
replicating things
Yeah.
inside. So I said, if I'm gonna do this, I don't want just to be in the restaurant business. That's not what I'm interested in. But I wanted to, can I grow this into one day a globally recognized brand? And
Mm.
I wanted to extend it into a full lifestyle brand based just on the things that we love, you know, the
Wow.
music that we love, the food that we love, the design, the
Yeah.
philosophy. So that's how it all started. And we thought the best way for us to do that, and Bali has always been the second home to me. I've always been going to Bali since I was very young with my family. And we thought, you know, if we're going to have any chance of globally recognized, it's best that we go to Bali. The competition is much harder than in Bali compared to Jakarta, of course. But if we can make it there, I think that's gonna be the first leap before we take it to the next global context. And that's
Yeah.
when we opened in Bali. And again, being so naive, not coming from the industry, we're like, okay, now this time we're not just gonna stop at restaurants, but we're gonna open multiple restaurants in one venue, and we're gonna make it into this idea called the Beach Club in Bali. But we're gonna also bring some of the best entertainments
Yeah.
in Bali, and that doesn't really exist before, you know. So
Mm.
hence the idea of Tiruet Beach Club comes along. And again, when we went to first open the beach club, we were very successful, and we had, how long has it been? It's 15 years. We had starting from 1,000 people to almost 2,000 people daily since the first day we've opened our door all the way until now. And it was just something completely different. But again, it was, if you're talking about operational nightmare, that was like, that's to whole new level. Coming up out of a small restaurant in Jakarta, I didn't realize what we've created in Bali. It's actually a 500 seating restaurants in total in combined. An event to cater to 3 to 4,000 people for
Yeah.
one single event, and one round of service when people standing at the bar, sitting up to 800,000 people at one time. So it was a completely operational nightmare. But again, that really made the mark, you know?
Yeah.
After the beach club, then we decided again that it just gave us that confidence as well. Okay, now we don't do the hotel world. Let's open up hotel. And again, and then start expanding from there.
It's wild. You use the word naivety. And I reckon every entrepreneur, every business owner, anybody like birthing a new project or kind of venturing, putting something out into the world, if we knew how much it would take, how much it would ask, what would be involved, like our future selves, like if there's such a thing, like they'd come back in time, get in a space machine and come back and just kind of slap us on the face and say, there's an easier road to this. How important do you think naivety is, that kind of chutzpah, that ability you said, man, I wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to take on big challenges. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it our way. We're going to go big and do it right. What's the right mix of naivety, a splash of skill, a whole bunch of courage? What have you learned over the years about what it actually takes to build things from scratch?
In my opinion, and again, this is just coming from my personal experience, in my opinion, and I've seen from some of my friends or just some of the brands out there. I believe, you know, how in life there's life cycles for us when
Mm.
we're in 20s, whether 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I believe it's the same for the business life cycle as well.
Hmm.
And there's a life cycle of business where it's startup mode. And in my opinion, that's where that thirst of just trying to prove a point
Mm-hmm.
and being very naive, it's really important to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the business is already established and it needs more stabilization and taken to a different level, I think it requires a slightly different, more of a skill set. And I not having the ability to self-assess
Mm.
where are your blind points or where you naive at could actually be quite dangerous then at that
Mm-hmm.
second or third business life cycle.
Yeah, it makes so much sense because you've continued to mature. So here we are, like on the timeline from let's go 15 years back to the beach club, and then on the horizon was the like an all suite hotel, then the studios, and now Potato Head as a cultural center. Was it always a part of the grand plan? Like when you were building the beach club itself, did you have that vision to go, I want this actually to be a Desa. I want this to be like a cultural village? Or did that come along the way?
I had that vision when um, it was 2 years, I think, after we've opened the beach club.
Hmm. Hmm.
When we first went there just to get to the beach club, I mean, that was the only thing that we wanted to do. We have no eyes even just trying to open up the hotel. We were just focusing on the beach club. And then the second thing I wanted to do was the hotel. And outside of the hotel idea, we're like, look, I don't want just to create another hotel. I wanted to create
Right.
this idea of like, let's build this as one big village in a way. It's like
Yeah.
one big creative playground, having all of the cultural points that I'm interested in, having all of the experiences that I'm interested in. And we also consciously try to build a smaller hotel first because we want to understand the hotel business. We have no clue
Yeah.
how to run a hotel.
Huh.
And at the same time as well, we wanted to make it an all-suite hotel. So we wanted to, you know, if we start something, we want it to be at the highest point.
Yeah.
So by then, when the bigger project open, we know that we can understand the scale, but having the quality at the same time. So that's
Mm.
the evolution of the projects.
Your attention to detail is pretty famous as well. I've heard it on the wind that you slept in 54 different suites and studios just to make sure that the rooms were set. Is that true? Like
Yeah,
your
that's
attention
true.
to detail there. I mean, what were you looking for? So did you just rack up 54 nights back to back? Were they built and you were like, okay, now it's like it's Ronald's night? And were you adjusting picture frames? Tell us about like that attention to detail.
When we first opened the hotel, I really the brief that we have in terms when we to the designers and so on, it's a collection of notes of all the things I really dislike in my travel.
Huh.
You know, from depressing mini bars, you know, all
Yeah.
the way to I don't understand why you have to wait in line to check in, why you have to still wait in line to check out. Why can't you just get it done in the room or get it done this? So there's a lot of things that I really dislike in my travel, and I've put all of those lists. So when the hotel was about to open, it was really kind of in a way out of like all personal motivation to really create something that I feel I know I will be the main consumer for it, you know? And I
Yeah.
believe it just and that's always been my North Star. I've always create things what I and looking at me as I'm the consumer, and I believe there's enough people out there that would also like the same thing. So
Yeah.
I guess sleeping in every single rooms is helping me to understand as well before we open because I just don't know what's the unknown. I want to make sure everything is uh perfect, everything is right, everything is. At first, I thought maybe that's just a normal way of doing it until when I hired the GM, they're like, I think that's the craziest thing an owner has ever done.
Do you know Rick Rubin? Do you love Rick Rubin?
Yes, yes, of course. I love recruitment.
Oh man, I love Rick Rubin.
Yes.
I think I was a Rick Rubin fan even before I was a Rick Rubin fan because I liked the Strokes and I liked Angus and Julia Stone. And obviously, who's not a fan of Beastie Boys and Jay-Z?
Yeah.
And then this is me a little bit older coming along. Holy smokes, there's like this wizened sage that sits behind all of these incredible artists, helping them bring the best out of themselves. There was this cracking interview that he did once. It's pretty famous now with Anderson Cooper. And Anderson Cooper is like, so you play music? And Rick's like, no. And he's like, oh, you're the engineer then? And he's like, no, I'm not the engineer. And so Anderson Cooper is like, so what do you do? And Rick thinks to himself for a second. And then he goes, well, I like to think that I have good taste and I trust my judgment. That sense of you trusting your judgment and really, really counting on the fact that, my words, maybe not something that you'd label yourself with, but like being a tastemaker and harnessing your experiences, using frustration as fuel, using your preferences to guide the way. It's not something that every entrepreneur or leader trusts themselves to do. Like there are people who are market led and they end up blending in with the crowd. There are people who follow trends and then it disappears in cycles. Did you learn that? Did you have moments where you were growing up where you noticed, actually, I'm just going to trust myself and go for it? Or is it that rebellious streak that you talked about, just running through everything that you do?
I definitely think that comes from my rebellious soul in a way,
Yeah.
It's I've always thought like, why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
that's always come across me like, okay, this doesn't exist. We don't do this. We don't do things that way. I was like, why not? That's gonna give me drive nowadays is to create things that are really beautiful, but also at the same time done as much as possible in a better way. And I've always searched that for me. It's almost like, why do I have to choose either or?
Yeah.
We have this idea. We now after the hotel, after the restaurants, the beach club, now we wanted to build homes where we really want our family to grow up with, homes that is
Mm,
just like all made as responsible as possible, but
yeah.
also actually homes that enable us become better, to become better person,
Yeah.
to live better, healthier, and so on. And when I asked this, they're like, yeah, we don't do that in the branded residence. And why not? And the more people tell me no, the more that it gives me that confidence I need to prove this point, or it gives me the confidence that I want to create this for me, you know?
Yes. Your partnerships, I mean, you talked about Andra before, Andra Martin, iconic architect. But the word loyalty comes to mind. I think it's a word that is triggering for some folks, like because it's been hung over them. You need to be loyal. But I know this about you that you build partnerships and you keep investing into those partnerships. You bring people along, you grow together. Andrew Martin the entire time. The people that you've collaborated with, whether it's DJ Harvey, whether it's Oma, whether it's Futura, whether it's Max Lamb, whether it's Erica Badu, like hanging around over the long term, that sense of loyalty runs pretty deep because I've also read that during COVID, it must have been a big moment for tourism in Bali, effectively just shutting the island down. You would have had a big staff group then, and I've read that you kept everybody on. You didn't let anybody go. Can you tell us the story about holding on to folks and finding your way through COVID, and why loyalty is such a big aspect of the way that you lead?
I don't know whether this is my strength or my weaknesses. I can, it can never just be business for me.
Yeah.
It's always personal. I don't know, no matter what, how many textbooks out there that say, business has to be business, it cannot be personal, but it just doesn't work for me, and for me, I think relationship is
Hmm.
everything. It's really hard, first and foremost, to find people that's aligned with your values.
Yeah.
And once we find people that's aligned with the values, you're able to uh trust that person. The idea is like 1 plus 1 equals 3. I really do believe that, you
Mm.
know? And the more you invest in it, the more it comes with more multiples. And I've experienced that throughout a
Yeah.
lot of the partnership that I have in the people that I collaborate with. I've also experienced it with people that um, I just cannot connect,
Yeah.
and no matter how famous they are, no matter how this they are, but if the connection is not there, if the energy is not there, it's just there's no magic that comes out of it.
Hmm.
And regarding our time during COVID, it is for, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me in my life, that's probably the biggest crisis I've ever
Yeah. Big
experienced,
one. Hmm.
and I've never seen uh, not just one part of life hit the crisis. That's like every single part, and I've seen it happening all over the world. I think that was just if for me that was just kind of like the big moment in my life that was really eye opening.
Uh,
Something a crisis like that could actually happen to me.
yeah. Yeah. I think it rattled everybody's cage. 100%.
Yes, knowing living in Bali and Bali, I would say probably now maybe 90% of Bali is depending on tourism.
Yeah.
There is nothing else other than tourism, right?
Hmm.
And when the whole island is shut down, Bali was not just only shut down for a couple of months, it was years. The airport for foreign
Yeah.
arrival was shut down.
Yeah.
For it to happen so quickly, people were having a hard time putting food on the table. And I'm not talking about people on the street. I'm talking about the extended family of the people in our team are having a hard time
Yeah.
putting food on the table. It was that bad. And at the same time, how could, like, when that happens, I know the first thing in a business textbook, okay, cut your payroll, right?
Sure.
It will help you get your, at least your earnings slightly better in the numbers. But for me, it's like, how could I dump the people that has been sacrificing so much for us in the hardest
Hmm.
part of their life?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so we decided, you know what, we don't know how long this is going to stand, but at least for 1 year, we're going to help everyone at least stand on their
Ha.
feet, and we're not going to lay anyone out. We're going to keep their medical insurance, and we're going to start doing activation that helps them as well. Like we start farming tea lands and making it into organic farm where they can start feeding the community, because we also think mentally people were just very
Yeah.
depressed, having just to
Hmm.
stay home, not having anything to do, and not having any purpose. So that time was um it was really hard for us to do that. And I think that was kind of like, in a way, a test of what we've trying to preach and build in the company culture. And because we did that, I really do believe I see the impact of it made to my team.
Mm.
And I remember after the whole quarantine was lifted off, and when we opened the Desa again 2 years later, people were people were telling me in person, it's like, unless you've done that, unless the company did it for us, my family wouldn't have survived, and
Amazing.
I see that, how that sense of careness as well, the way they translate that to our guests,
Hmm.
to my team's credit, people just say that one of the most beautiful things staying in Desa Potato Head is the people. They're just very genuine. It's not really just about the skills, but there's this genuine hospitality that people care and give. And I really do believe that
Hmm.
hard moments when we stand up for our culture, it really strengthens that, and it radiates when
Yeah.
and when they serve um, our guests.
this is one of the most architecturally inspiring places that I've ever been. And it is filled with opportunities for people to find rest and healing and proper, delicious food. But the thoughtfulness runs deep, even to the bricks that the hotel is made out of. Tell us the story about the bricks, so that it's also just vertically integrated through Bali itself, isn't it?
That was for our first hotel, and my goal was I wanted to promote the artisans of Bali, the artisans of Indonesia. I wanted to promote Indonesian contemporary craftsmanship to the world. And so one of the most beautiful things that I love in Bali are the temples.
Yeah.
And the temples are all made using this handmade, hand-dried mud bricks. And
Mm.
and sadly though, a lot of these bricks are no longer being used
Mhm.
for the new buildings. So I've wanted to, it's kind of like a dying art. So I've wanted to create a statement. I wanted the building to create that statement. So I asked Andra Martin, I was like, look, why don't we only use one material and it's just the bricks for the whole building?
Yeah.
And let's really make a statement out of this. To build that, we actually work with the village in Tabanan on the east side of Bali. They have been making these bricks for generations, but because of there's not much order, so
Hmm.
their capacity is very limited. So we actually help build the factory together with them in the village so that they can process these orders down. So we commissioned over 1.8 million bricks, if I'm not mistaken. Everything is handmade, hand dried, hand installed, and that became the whole facade of the building.
It's unbelievable. And I'm just going to sound like a broken record here. For folks who have not been to Potato Head, this is the most inspiring, beautiful place on earth as far as I'm concerned. That sense of regenerative hospitality. I mean, even on your shirts and the products, it says good times do good. This sense that it doesn't have to be a choice between a world-class experience and a trash heap that it leaves behind. It doesn't have to be a choice between organic food and low quality experience. This is a place where you're committed to doing both all the time. Um, you had a pretty iconic moment though, where you were surfing with your son and Bali was experiencing something that we all read about across the news, an ocean full of plastic. Can you tell us that story where you really switched on to this sense of how you could, excuse my words, but harness and weaponize Potato Head to do even more from a regenerative perspective?
Before that, I've always felt like I've always had this ambition to grow Potato Head, and it's always coming. I wanted to be the best at it. And again, I have this ambition always. I wanted to prove that the local Indonesian brand can be one day globally recognized. That's always kind of been the drive for me. When that moment happened, I remember, I think it was 2016. I was surfing with my son, my first son out, Noah, and we were 500-meter out already in the ocean. And I was paddling. We were still paddling in trash.
Hmm.
All of our surf leash, everything and stuff was just tangled with plastic. It was just, I mean, it was a bizarre experience. We got caught up in this tide. And I think that year as well, there was a special tide that brought all the trash in
Hmm.
to the shores of Bali. So when we got back to the beach, we saw the trash was about as high as my knee and as far as my eyes can see. The locals couldn't even pick it up by hands anymore. They had to bring tractors that following week to the beach to start picking up the trash. And for me, that was just kind of a big wake up call where I couldn't just stand still, not and close
Hmm.
my eyes and pretend that never happened.
Hmm.
It really opened up my mind as well. Where, you know what, this is kind of the higher purpose we need. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point for me to have kind of like a vehicle like Potato Head or me becoming an entrepreneur so that I can actually use that as a vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's where
Mm.
I shift everything. Suddenly the aha moment is there. I was like, look, you know what? I'm not trying to save the world or I'm not trying to do that, but I know that through the skill set that I have and through just the business that I have, I can
Mm.
be part of that solution rather rather than the continuous problem. So that's when we start shifting everything. And with Potato Head, I've always wanted as well. I was like, you know what? I've thought about it where how can we play a role? We know that we're not a scientist or an activist and so on, but we know that we have this quite large audience of people that we are connected with. And they go to us because they want to have a good time.
Mhm.
And it will be a turn off. And it's the same again, I guess that to me as well. I don't like it when people are preaching to me,
Mhm.
but I actually get into things when I'm inspired to do things. You
Yeah.
know, when someone tell me, no, you cannot do that, no, you cannot do that, versus a person show me how a better way to do that, that just inspires me, I end up becoming much more committed. And that's what I
Mm.
thought. I think the audience in Potato Head, for me, it's not just about suddenly saying that, look, we're going to do this. No, then the whole intention for us, we should actually create the most amazing time for people.
Mm.
And then slowly we show them how we do it in a better way. And hence the
Mm.
idea of like
Mm.
good times comes first. Like, you know, we hear all about good times. We're not asking, you know, come to us because we're an eco-friendly hotel. Come to us. We can this, come to us. You're a bad person unless you're a vegetarian, or you're a bad person unless, like, you know, so for us, it's just like, we thought, why don't we just show all the good times first? And when people come to us, and then when we start showing them how we operate, when we start creating products that is just so beautiful, but it's responsibly made, when we create food that is just delicious, it just so happens it's responsibly sourced or it's made
Mhm.
with the right taste, I think people can relate more. Hence the idea of
Yeah.
like the mantra good times and do good.
It's been such a wild compression. I mean, because the timeline that you're talking about is 20 years. And yes, like like a little bit more and all the things, but this wild compression from art gallery, residential project, restaurant, beach club, all suite hotel, studios, Potato Head as a cultural center. It's like bang, 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 this really tight era. Just to swing the conversation a little bit, there must have been a toll on you as a human being, because there's a big intensity involved in that. You've got how many thousand staff? 2,000 staff. You're walking people through COVID. What are some of the costs of this entrepreneurial leadership building lifestyle? What does it cost you? And what have you learned about how to manage yourself as a human being as you keep building for the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think business wise, we're very successful, but also at the same time, after a while, I don't really get the satisfaction anymore. At that time, I was flying back and forth. I have my family, I have young children. So I was pretty much a weekend dad, you know? I would
Yeah.
fly in Monday morning, I would get back to Jakarta Friday evening. And then Saturday, it took me the whole day just to recover, you know? On Sunday,
Hmm.
I'm finally able to be more present with my family. You're awake, you're fully
Yeah.
recovered. But Monday I'm out, you know. And
Yeah.
I was doing that for years,
Brutal.
and also at the end, the success was starting to become empty. That's when to point where we have thoughts to just like, why don't we just sell the whole business, you know? And
Hmm.
that's it. We could just
Yeah.
retire and sell the whole business.
Wow.
But I know, so I was very close to that, and at that time but I know as well, if I do that, I know I'm going to regret it, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
for the rest of my life. Not so much the business, but I know I'm going to
Yeah.
regret it because I took a shortcut without really understanding, following through the journey itself. So
Yeah.
at that time, I think I told you this, like I've devoured every self-help books out there. You know,
Yeah.
I look at,
Yeah.
and again, it's not just 1 month, 2 months, it's years in journey. I think that helps me
Hmm.
evolve as
Hmm.
well. I've tried meditation, I've tried this, I've tried all of that. You know, my first big wake up call was actually, I went to Tony Robbins event.
Yeah, Tony.
Uh,
Shout out,
and
Tony.
yeah, that was, you know, I went to Tony Robbins event not because like my brother went there and he was like, he was telling me, Rob, you got to go to this. I was like, no, I'm okay. I don't really need it. He's like, no, you just have to try it. It's an amazing
Yeah.
experience. And then he signed up the event for me. I have no clue what I got myself into.
Yeah.
I've only heard Tony Robbins back then when I was in high school. There was still Tony Robbins CD, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
In the
so I
mail.
haven't really
Uh-huh.
I haven't really followed what Tony Robbins does. No, they say it's just like I just signed you a seminar. It's called Date with Destiny, and
Yeah.
it's a 7 days seminar. I was like, oh, 7 days. He's like, yeah. Uh, uh, Only then I found out that's probably like at the highest level of the seminar. There's
Mm-hmm.
the 2 days. He just signed me up for the
Mm-hmm.
7 days. And I got to the event. I was like, everyone was just suddenly jumping, dancing,
Yep.
screaming. I was like, shit, what did I get myself into? I'm like,
Everyone's
after
like,
the first day,
woo. Yeah.
I know, after the first day, I was like, oh, this is not for me. I was like, I better get out. And my brother was like telling me, it's like, you know what, Ron, you're going to be so uncomfortable, but you have to stay at least 3 days. And
Oh
so
man.
I don't know if you've been to the event, but it's
Yeah,
so
I've been.
crazy.
Yeah,
You've
it
been,
is.
right?
It's intense. Yeah.
So you start 8 a.m., you finish like 2
These are
a.m.
jumbo days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Enormous. And you're like scramming notes the entire time. And you're like, and then this, and you're feeling this. It's constant, isn't it? It's exhausting.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was studying again. I was because I've been studying all of these books. I've been seeing all different mentors. I've started all this meditation. So I know I was like, wow, I thought this guy are able to put, I mean, everything combined from yoga to NLPs to I mean everything combined in one and delivering it in such a great way and
Yeah.
impactful way, right? I
Yeah.
just thought even just watching the guy talks nonstop for all
Stamina.
day. Oh
Absolute
my god.
stamina.
And it was crazy. And for me, I think on the fifth or the sixth day, then I had my
Click.
click. It was just like for me, that was kind of like, you know what? That's when I know where I'm able to connect to my higher purpose.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't have a sustained drive. Suddenly that's when I don't know, I had that moment. I still remember at that time, he brought you into meditative state. And then imagine, okay, going back when you're 5 years old, 10, I still remember exactly when
Yeah.
it was vivid in my meditation. It was so clear. I remember what clothes I wear. I
Yep.
remember, and he was telling me, it's like, what made you felt that way? And so I remember that at that time, I was using yellow clothes. I was running. My
Wow.
dad actually had me at the finish line and told his friends, this one has a superpower. This one has a superpower. This kid has a superpower. And I guess that sadly connected me that it's almost like, you know what? The rebel, the this and stuff and so on. But it's just like all of these things I can use for something bigger than me. And that was kind of like the aha moment for me
Mm.
at that Tony Robbins event. And I guess since then, I got back. Again, I still continue on that journey. I keep trying to evolve myself, this and stuff. And then that 2016 happened, that big aha moment
Hmm.
for me. And that's when I finally found that the purpose for what I do still is not so much just to be the best, but actually I can use this as a vehicle. The moment I'm
Yeah.
able to do that,
Wild.
suddenly I have drive and also stamina that's no longer depleting. Like I suddenly have a higher purpose where a sense that I wanted to contribute more, and that's actually has been given me an amazing drive.
It's beautiful. I mean, we share that common heritage because I mean the backdrop here. People always ask, "Oh, Phil, that's a cool background. Like, just send me a copy of that, so I'll use it in my Zoom background." Kind of a. That's my bookshelf, and it's portions of it too. But that sense of being invested, because there have been people that have gone before us, and I mean, plenty of people have an opinion about Tony Robbins. But holy smokes, has he
Yeah,
unlocked humans all across the planet, right? Like Tony's the GOAT. And then it doesn't matter whether it's like Zig Ziglar, Ram Dass, goodness me, whether it's Paramahansa Yogananda all the way back. Folks like me don't exist if it's not for folks like them. And that sense of an opportunity to contribute to the lives of others is so extraordinary. But I think that there's two great forums for life. There's the relationships that we have, our commitment to it, what we understand about ourselves along the way, and the work that we do also works on us.
Yes.
Is that it's not a one-way street. It is not this process of me enacting myself on the world and like forcing things into existence and like that's what it is, that it's a monodirectional value contribution. What I get from my work in the ability to reflect, in the ability to grow, in the ability to evolve, God, like I'm looking forward to being 50. I'm looking forward to being 60. I'm looking forward to being 70. As a communicator, I look forward to the days when I can compress, like 3 hours worth of wisdom into 45 minutes or 45 minutes worth of wisdom into like 5 minutes. That sense of constant evolution, growth, and change because the work that we do works on us. What are some of the lessons that you're getting right now, 2025? What's this moment? What's this era about for you? What are you noticing that your work is working on you about?
One of the things that really unlocked me uh, during that time when I went to Tony Robbins, I remember he was saying that it kind of suddenly makes sense to me why you always need this drive. He was telling me, you know what?
Hmm.
It's all just about two things: growth and contribution.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And we always need to grow ourselves. Unless we grow, unless we do action, like just how nature works, you're not gonna evolve. So the more you evolve, the more you can contribute. So for me, I guess then since then, one of the biggest, most impactful things for me it's when I got deep into yoga. So I found
Yeah.
my teacher, Dr. Cool. But what he teaches yoga is not about yoga as the movement, but yoga as the philosophy itself. And that helps me understand so much. So for me, whether it's 2004, 2025, 2000, this is just that I've always just tried to evolve. And I find it a lot more and more through contemplation. Rather, so instead of doing things, well, I guess maybe before I try to always evolve by absorbing things. I've
Yeah.
tried to I need to learn this, I need to learn this, I need to learn this, I need to learn this.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, especially this year, I felt that there are so many things I've read about learned in the past, but I don't actually really understand it because I haven't really properly experienced it. And I feel the
Yeah.
more now I learn much more by contemplating things. By I write my journal, and most
Yeah.
of my journal, I before I thought of just journaling just to kind of get what my thoughts out and or record things and so on. But now for me, journaling is a way for me to actually really contemplate. And there's a lot of
Beautiful.
ideas that I've learned over the years. There's a lot of philosophy that I've learned over the years that I only get to understand now the more that I dig deep to it. And
Yeah.
I still feel a lot of things are just still at the surface. And the more I contemplate, the more I do this. So I do a lot of contemplation, different type of philosophies,
Yeah.
and I've gone much deeper in the yoga philosophy. I've studied. I went to India to study about Vedanta, which is similar to yoga philosophy. I believe I see so many elements to it are actually the roots, or
Yeah.
it all comes from the same roots.
We share that in common. I mean, for me, the most sacred times in my week is literally just sitting. We got a wood-fired sauna in the little hippie town where I live called Mullumbimby, about 10 minutes north of Byron Bay. It's the place for it. But it's this communal wood-fired yurt. It's a sauna.
Amazing.
Why I love it is because it's quiet. And the rest of our life is so noisy. Like you talked about, that sense of constantly sucking in, constantly learning, constantly experiencing, but without the moments of quiet that allow us to process and integrate. It all sits there in potential, doesn't it? And for me, this is something that Yogananda said. He, like the old yogic kind of like guru, he said, just sit there, just sit there and be quiet. Someone, asked him, yeah, but how do I meditate? But how do I do it? And he's like, just sit there and be quiet. And you practice that long enough. Ram Dass talks about this, another great teacher of mine from a distance, obviously. Ram's passed now. But that sense of studying the full human curriculum. That there's so many leaders, and I'm looking for a book on my desk, I don't have it, but there's so many leaders who would be flipping through the textbook of their life, and there's the P&L chapter, there's the how to be a great manager chapter, there's how to like go from startup to scale up chapter, all of these kinds of things. And then there's like the sections that maybe we haven't dared to dig into enough, which is, can I sit quietly? Am I prepared to look at myself in the eyes, figuratively, spiritually, emotionally? Do I dare to look at the things that I find hard and scary? And really taking on the full human curriculum is something that is transformative for leaders. For anybody who knows these two characters, this is one of my favorite stories. You would know Alan Watts. Do you know Alan
Yes,
Watts?
yes,
The
yes, of
American
course.
Zen philosopher. And so Alan Watts and Ram Dass were good buddies. And you could imagine they both like a drink. There's no dramas there. And so the story is it's 3 a.m. and they're both hammered on Benedictine wine in some monastery in Italy. And they're catching up. They haven't caught up for a long time. And Alan Watts turns to Ram Dass, whose name is Richard, and he's like, you know what your problem is, Rich? You're too spiritual. You haven't nailed the human part. And so here's Ram Dass, like long beard, flowing linen robes, nailed the spiritual part. And he's like, you're right. I have avoided these parts of my life, the full song and the dance of the human experience. And it's probably the thing that I love most about you is that as a role model for entrepreneurs, is that becoming more human, becoming more of ourselves, digging into family, digging into community, digging into life, digging into loyalty, digging into it doesn't come at the expense of success. There's this version of entrepreneurship that seems like, like with the fangs hanging out and it's a little bit desperate, it's territorial and it's aggressive. It doesn't have to be the way though, does it, Ronald?
I find it where the best way for me to evolve as an entrepreneur is when I'm able to evolve myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mentally, spiritually, physically. I feel like when I'm continuing to invest in me, I become suddenly a better leader.
Mm-hmm.
I create better. But also the most important thing, which in my opinion, one of the hardest thing to face is I become much more aware of my ego. And I
Yeah.
think ego and
Yes.
and I don't know if you read the book by Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. I really do
Yeah.
think so. At
Yeah.
the end, it's just there's so many layers of that where for me it's just like the more that I can actually improve myself, the more that in just decisions that I make towards business, you suddenly don't rush things, but you actually able to make wiser decisions. But also the more that you question yourself a lot, like it's this, are you growing out of ego or are you growing out of purpose?
Beautiful.
Even simple things like just saying no. You know what I mean? I really don't like to say no, but for me, it's just like, okay, why I don't want to say no? Is it because of my ego of not wanting
Yeah.
to look bad or wanting to this? And just so in able to constantly self-assessing and having the ability and the skill set and the time for me to do that actually helps me to become a much more better entrepreneur.
It's so beautiful. I've gotten to do this now, Ronald, in 75 different countries across the world. One of the things that is like a repeated motif, maybe some of the first notes that I ask people to capture in our sessions with leaders is to say in the first person, I will never go professionally where I'm afraid to go personally. That
Mm,
sense that growth is growth. Holy smokes, I'll take growth is growth. I've got 2 kids, a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old boy. Hands down, the best thing that's ever happened to humanity, these 2 people, your children
mm,
aside, of course.
mm,
But I learn more about leadership and life from them, I think,
mm. Yes,
than
yes.
any dorky, and shout out to Harvard Business Press, but any kind of like bookshelf kind of like output that would be like speaking into the business. There's more in terms of patience. There's more in terms of purpose. There's more in terms of ambition. And what I love being a student of is the unexpected opportunities for insight. That sense that we can't rob ourselves of growth by being snobby
Mm,
about the sources of our insight. Because in the same way that an aha moment came for you surfing one day, in the same way that an aha moment came for me while I'm reading a book to my 5-year-old boy on a Thursday night, some of the biggest aha moment breakthroughs that we get come at unexpected times from unexpected sources. So that sense of wide-eyed curiosity that is so deeply necessary for the work that we do, it means putting aside what I think I know, and the shoulds of it all. You use the word ego in that sense of my need, like my
Mm,
insistence
mm,
on how
mm.
things are supposed to be. The more I can go, all right, buddy. And for me, it's not manhandling my emotions. It's that sense of like, all right, relax, like we're going to be okay. And if I can temper that, that sense of spaciousness and openness comes. We don't have you forever. I mean, holy smokes, I could settle in, we could get some takeaway food, and we could just keep jamming for days. But I do want to ask you about the future. What's next for Potato Head? What are some of the visions that are stretching in front of you right now?
So where I want to take Potato Head next is, I've always been, again, I grew up coming from travel. I think few things like I've my ambition since before was I wanted to grow this into a full lifestyle brand
Yeah.
in terms of kind of like 10 years mission kind of thing. I've wanted to create a more meaningful way for people to travel. And I
Mm,
wanted to create a more meaningful way for people to live and for people to
mm,
consume. So by that, what I meant, so for people to travel, I wanted to grow this idea of what we've built in Bali, kind of just like one whole big creative village. And I wanted to bring it to other destinations around the world, but
mm,
really destinations that resonates
mm.
in terms of its cultural, it's deep in culture, but also like maybe a destination that requires where we can play a role in helping that destination become better.
Yeah.
And for me, again, showcasing people that good times and doing good could actually be side by side.
Hmm.
So we've just secured a project in Japan. It's going to be an amazing project,
Ooh.
and we're looking at some other areas. So the project in Japan is going to be in the Japanese Alps. It's going to be on the mountainside,
Wow.
and we're going to do kind of similar what we have in Bali, but a decentralized concept where we're taking different sites of abandoned buildings, abandoned homes, and we're going
Hmm.
to give it new
Hmm.
life. But it's all going to be scattered throughout this small village. So you just walk
Amazing.
everywhere from your room to your well-being space to your design space. At the same time, one of the biggest issue in terms of this type of destinations in Japan is aging populations.
Yeah.
Because most of the young populations doesn't go back to the countryside. The countryside is
Hmm.
dying. They all stay in the city
Hmm.
side. So one of our goal is to also build this idea of collective where we work together with the local entrepreneurs, and then we create a
Amazing.
platform where we open up the spaces together. That's
Yeah.
a destination we're looking in Japan. We're looking at destination now in Thailand. We're looking at destination in Portugal. So I wanted to really create this way where, for me, travel is one of the most beautiful things human can do.
Mm.
For me, I learned so
Hmm.
much about people. I learned so
Hmm.
much about culture, and I became much more open-minded every time I get to see things in their perspective. And so for me, also at the same time, I know what tourism can do to a destination, both the good and the bad side. And I wanted to create that product that really showcase people that, again, you don't have to choose one or the other, you can do both. And the second thing that I want to do after that is I wanted to create homes, but more kind of like living communities now that
Hmm.
I want to create these homes in amazing locations around the world, but again, homes that is not like trophy homes. I don't want it
Yeah.
to be it's a home that you flex and just kind of like, you stay as just your holiday home. I wanted to actually build homes where there's community homes that is like all made with beautiful architecture, but
Yeah.
beautifully made, but where you can just source all of the food from your organic farm. You can have your well-being center. In Bali, the homes will be by the surf. In Japan, will be by the ski. In this, so I wanted to create again out of the need that I want to grow up and live in those kind of environment for my kids. And the third thing is products. I've wanted to create in order for us to build all these things. I've wanted to create products as well that is still beautiful, functional, accessible, but made as responsible as possible. That's homeware, travelwear, accessories, apparel. Again, to fill the same needs. So for me, the next 10 years, it's to really create this lifestyle ecosystem of travel, living, and products, and all very connected into this idea of how it should be rich in culture, but also at the same time, it should all be about good times and yet made as responsible as possible.
Holy moly. Holy moly. And so for anybody listening, please travel to Bali. Please get to Potato Head. It genuinely will change your life. It's changed mine. Ronald, so grateful for your time. Holy smokes, this has been a good conversation.
Thank you, Phil. It's been fun. It's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, man. Hey friends, did you enjoy that? I certainly did. I mean, what a legend and what a brilliant leader. I'm curious though about what you got from that conversation. What's the stuff that's important to you? What's the stuff that's sticking to your heart and your mind right now? I'd love to hear from you about that. For me, if we were comparing notes, it was probably the two words that he kept coming back to through the conversation. Those two words that reveal his mindset for creating and leading. Maybe you noticed them yourselves. He said this, why not? And he asked himself that question over and over. Why not create something different? Why not challenge what's normal? Why not trust my own taste? Why not build the thing that I wish existed? And I love it. What a beautiful expression of the punk rock stance that is entrepreneurship. That refusal to accept the status quo as sacred. It's a belief that if it doesn't exist yet, maybe that's exactly why we should be making it. Everything that runs in the heart of a leader and an entrepreneur. I think there are too many leaders who spend their lives asking a different kind of question though. They might be asking a question like, can we? The best leaders, the ones who shift industries though, are the ones that ask, why not? Why not build a restaurant that isn't copied from the West? Why not open a beach club that becomes a global brand? Why not build a hotel out of one material and revive a dying craft? Why not divert 99% of our waste? And on and on and on. It's that posture of curiosity, of creative rebellion that creates space for possibility. It's the permission slip that leaders rarely give themselves, but one that I want to encourage you to adopt for yourself. You see, I have a hunch that the more time you spend with leaders like Ronald, the more you understand the idea that the best leaders don't blindly follow the rules of their industry. They don't just wait for a proven path to appear. And they certainly don't sit back or ask for permission. They take those defiant steps towards what they believe should exist and start building from there. So as I think back on this chat, the invitation and the lingering question is probably a simple one. Where are we accepting the default when instead we should be asking why not? Friends, that was a good conversation and I'm so glad you joined us for it. Can't wait to share more with you. I'll see you soon.